So, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Reading Strategies Reading Between the Lines Student Success Workshop. If you guys don't know who I am or haven't, this is your first time coming to our Student Success Workshop, my name is Christy. I am one of the I'm one of the college interns here with LBCC's Early College Initiatives team, and I specifically work with the individual dual enrollment program, and I do these student success workshops. So this workshop specifically is going to be about reading strategies. And then as a quick reminder, just for anyone that happens to be popping in, we have a sign-in link. If it doesn't work, do let me know and just put it into chat. And I will go back to the page where you guys can go ahead and sign up. But as for right now, we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation. So we're going to be learning about different reading strategies. Some of these reading strategies are probably some things that you already kind of know about. You probably have known about it, but you didn't know the name of it. And then who knows, maybe some of this might be new to you. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. Okay. So we're going to kind of go into what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go into a quick mindful moment. This mindful moment is going to kind of help you guys tap in and lock in into your reading when you guys are kind of using reading strategies or just when you're reading in general. Then we're going to go into like what the importance of reading strategies, like why have them in the first place? Why do we need them? We're gonna kind of just do a brief overview about that. Then we're gonna do be going over the passive and active reading strategies, kind of the benefits and differences, and then also which is more which one you should probably use more if you're trying to, read and trying to retain your information. Then we're going to go into the different types of reading strategies, and then we're going to go do a recap, and then we're going to close it out from there. So starting off with our mindful moment. So this is something that you guys could probably try to do before you start reading. It's called the mindful focus position, otherwise known as MFP. So what you're going to do is that before you read any type of text, whether that is a book, an article on your laptop or your iPad, no matter what it is that you're reading, and you're trying to retain that information, you can increase your concentration by tapping the prefrontal cortex, which is your forehead, with deep breaths. So you're literally going to be touching like your forehead within each deep breath that you take, and you are going to be kind of doing that to it's kind of in a way to center yourself before you start to read, and it helps retain your information a lot more easier. As I said, like it helps with focusing on the content that you're reading. It helps with recalling certain things, thinking creatively. It even helps with decision making, and it also can help with connecting previous knowledge that you may know. So this is just a quick thing that if you're ever curious and you want to go ahead and try it out before you read like one of your textbooks, I would definitely recommend doing so. So we're going to go ahead and move on, and we're going to talk about the importance of reading strategies. So reading strategies overall are it's a type of method for enhancing your learning, right? So one of the important things, one of the reasons why reading strategies are important is because it's useful. It's a useful process for enhancing your understanding. So regardless of what type of text that you are reading, whether that is textbooks, it's articles, journal entries, newspapers, even the dictionary, even, it kind of helps process your understanding if you are reading to if you're reading to understand. Active reading is increase the motivation. So one of the important things about reading strategies, and we're actually going to go into active reading and why I'm going to emphasize why active reading is probably the best type of reading that you can do, especially as students. Um, you have more engagements in an effective reading strategies, and it can make you want to actually read more. You are actually a little bit more motivated to read outside of just reading within the amount of chapters that your professor is having you read. That can even go even more so for not only just your textbooks, but that can even go for like leisure reading. Um, so, you know, you kind of have like this more profound interest in reading. Because I do know, and I do this too sometimes too, with some of my own personal books. I do like to highlight and annotate certain parts of the book so I can kind of remember what is important, which characters are you know are more active, who is the main character, that kind of thing. So it only not only applies to just your learning as a college student or just as a student in general, but it can just honestly increase your motivation to read in general. And one of the important things about reading strategies is that um, everyone has a different way of reading and everyone has a different style. Um, and you know what? Finding out which reading strategy is the best one for you is going to also, again, increase your motivation to want to read more. You'll feel less stressed, and reading will be more fun for you. It won't be a chore to try to find answers. It won't be a chore to or a drag to kind of like skim through your book. Reading is just going to become more enjoyable for you. So with that being said, we're going to go into what passive reading is. So there are two types of reading that I mentioned earlier before, and one of them is passive reading. So passive reading is quite literally what this person is doing here on the couch. This is more of typically like this is leisure reading, right? You're reading for pleasure. You're not really taking too many notes. You might be, but you may not be really like studiously taking notes. You kind of just read just to go along with it. And you're reading at the same speed. You're not reading quick. You're not reading slow. You're kind of going at your own pace, basically. And that's typically something that you really see again, like I said, with leisure reading. You might be reading The Fourth Wing on your couch, and you're kind of reading it just to read it. Sometimes what I do too is that I read some of my textbooks for my classes, and I kind of read them just to be kind of curious about what is something that I can do. So, I'm in a school counseling program, and one of the textbooks I have involves small groups. So sometimes when I am at home and I'm kind of just doing my own thing, sometimes I might take that book out and I might try to just look through and kind of just like pass through each page to see what I can use as like a strategy or as a technique with my students when I do my groups with them. Again, it's not really something to be taken seriously, but you're also having fun in a way. You don't feel too stressed when you are doing passive reading. Active reading is the complete opposite. So where if you think about it with your brain, passive reading, if we look back real quick, your brain is kind of turned off. You're reading for pleasure. You're reading at the same speed. You're kind of going through everything. Active reading, you are turning your brain on. Some of the things that some people may do first is that they'll skim through maybe the first few pages before they kind of start looking exactly for what it is that they're trying to work on. I know that I'm probably covering this part, but it says you adjust to reading based on your text. So again, you're adapting to the context of your reading. You're actually processing what you are reading while you are quite literally actively reading. While you are reading these lines, your brain is like literally processing everything, and it's because you are purposely trying to process these things. Um, what we also do is that by the time that you are done reading, so say for example, you're done reading a specific chapter, um, you will want to reflect and evaluate what you have read. You're kind of taking that other initiative and that next step into understanding what it is that you read, and that is basically what active reading is. You're kind of taking another, like you're just taking reading up a notch just to be able to kind of understand. So, okay. So active reading, passive reading, what's the difference? Well, if we're looking at it in a way where we are supposed to be, you know, engaging ourselves in reading, and if, for example, you have a professor who is specifically trying to make sure that you are retaining certain knowledge, your best bet is to do active reading rather than passive reading. If we look at the passive reading, um, the thing with passive reading is that if you're passively reading your textbook, you're not going to retain that information. Um, we are all tired by the end of the day, especially if we're coming back from school, if we're coming back from work, and then we go to school. Um, if we are reading while we're tired and distracted, and especially if we're really, really just not in the mood to be reading, you're not going to retain that information properly, which again is going to make it a little bit harder for you to study when it comes to a test or a quiz. If you're passively reading your textbooks, and because it's a required reading and you need to be able to understand that reading, finding the text or getting frustrated easily is not going to help. If you just kind of like read it over and over again, if you're skimming through it and by the end of the chapter you become more confused, that is also passive reading and it's really ineffective. Um, the reason why you want to be using active reading when you are in college classes or just when you're in classes in general, you're building that engagement and you're improving your reading comprehension, your speed, and enjoyment. Um, you're reading to want to know more information, and you're reading to look back on certain information that you have. Um, just something I really wanted to share real quick. One of the things that I remember my mom had actually put me in when I was, I want to say maybe eighth grade going into my freshman year of high school. My mom had put me into a reading class where we learned how to read quickly and effectively, and then also was able to retain the information. And funny enough, I've become like a really, really fast reader. Um, but at the same time, what that is though, and something I kind of really want to emphasize, especially between active and passive reading, is that active reading takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of discipline. So if you've ever heard about doing the Pomodoro technique, which is something I love to talk about a lot in a lot of my workshops, the Pomodoro technique is one of the best techniques that you can use to kind of help you with active reading. You give yourself 25 minutes to kind of kind of go through your text and then also maybe write down little notes along the way and then kind of give yourself a break and then kind of go back into it. So active reading takes practice, and it's highly encouraged, especially if you are a student. So we're going to go over the different types of reading strategies, and the ones that I have um, the ones that I have here that are kind of that are starred. Basically, what that means is that this is a typical strategy that most people use when they are reading actively. Um, Again, reading actively means that you are quite literally have the book in front of you and you are on the side or on your book. You are, taking notes, you are kind of thinking and taking things into consideration. So one of the reading strategies that are I'm pretty sure everyone does this is annotating. So you're writing or you're marking your text with notes or questions while you're reading. What that can kind of look like is if you happen to have if you happen to have here, I actually have one right here. If you're the type of person that doesn't like writing in their books, especially if it's a rental, sticky notes. You guys can definitely use sticky notes to write down your little questions, and you can, stick it and even use it as like a little bookmark on your book to kind of go back to for a certain page. Uh-oh. Okay, so you are doing all these different things to kind of like as you are going through each page or each paragraph or each line, you're writing something on there that you know will be memorable for you and something that you can refer back to when you go back to that page. Um, this can also include like highlighting with a highlighter or even using, writing something like putting a little symbol or even using like different colors to differentiate like what the importance or the significance of a certain line, of certain word, even kind of going into just highlighting a word that you may not know and you want to kind of look it up after. So annotating is just one of those things that you can definitely use um, whenever. And it's one of those strategies that most people will use when they are reading actively. Um, Another type of reading strategy is questioning. So you're asking yourself the five W's: who, what, when, where, and why. This is kind of more of when you are I would say like certain textbooks for certain probably for certain like subjects. You would use that type of questioning to kind of engage yourself. Paraphrasing is stating your main idea with a different word structure. So you're using you're kind of using a specific main idea and you're kind of rewording it in a way for it to make sense to you or to make it more understandable for you. That's paraphrasing. Chunking, it's breaking down text into even smaller text, and it becomes more manageable to understand. So if you take like a sentence, if you take a whole paragraph and um, you divide it into three different main parts, that's what chunking is, and that's how you're able to retain information that way. Um, Another one that I've noted and I have starred for this is, let me see if I can move actually out of the way. It is visualizing. Um, if you happen to be someone who is really um if you happen to be someone like me who is a visual learner, um, is both visual and like hands-on. Um, Visualizing is a really good reading strategy that, you are quite literally making these mental images in your head, and it helps you create a connection with the text. The best way I can definitely describe that is that, for example, a lot of my elementary students, they have um, they have a lot of reading activities where they are asked questions, and then at the end of it, they are asked to draw a picture about a certain thing that they learned. Something that I can think of at the top of my head that they've learned was something about volcanoes. And so, um, you know, my students are able to kind of not only look back at their book to kind of like give themselves a better idea of like what a volcano is and what they do, and how they work. Um, and they kind of are able to do that like on a piece of paper, and they're able to do that by kind of like actually seeing what's on the book. So sometimes when sometimes it becomes a little bit more easier when we have textbooks that have a lot of figures, or they have a lot of tables, pie charts, or even if they happen to have like a really nice picture or a to describe a certain scene from a book that you're reading. Visualizing can honestly help you see quite literally the bigger picture. It makes it easier to understand when you can actually see it. And it's really beneficial for people who are visual learners. So that's kind of why I put a star on that one, because it is also another very popular reading strategy that can be used in like different ways. I also did want to say too that for visualizing is, we'll kind of get into it in a little bit, but it's also even just doing like physical mind mapping or like physical charts, um, or even just drawing out the picture themselves. I just wanted to go ahead and add on to that as well. Connecting, so this is another one too. So relevancy is also a really good way of is a really good reading strategy if you are trying to recall a lot of information. Um, Connecting, if you're linking your personal experiences and you're kind of linking it to like a broader text, it makes it more relevant and it makes it easier for you to connect. Um, so a lot of like maybe a lot of memorable things that may have happened in your life can be a personal connection to a text in, let's say, something with sports, right? Um, you can make a connection to that, and then it will be easier for you to kind of retain the information and to remember it later on down the road. So even if you think about just of one specific word, if you make that connection, it makes it easier to understand and it makes it easier for you to remember. Reading aloud. So as kids growing up, we have all had our teachers read out to us aloud, and we have all done popcorn before with our teachers, and we've all had that same experience where we hated to hear our own voice whenever our teacher called on us to read either a line or a paragraph in our textbook. But guess what? It is actually a really smart reading strategy to not only teachers to get their students involved and to participate in the class, but it also really helps with a lot of like different um developments. Um for for reading aloud, you are experiencing reading in a dynamic way. It is also a form of active reading. You're developing listening comprehension, you're developing your language acquisition, and just overall literacy development. So, listening comprehension, you're able to pronounce words and articulate words a lot more clear if you are reading it aloud. Um, you are learning new languages, you're learning how to say certain words differently, how to pronounce them, and overall, you're just improving how you can comprehend literature if you are reading aloud. So not only are you reading it, but you're kind of using a lot of you're using a lot of your brain in order to kind of process that information. So everyone, if you ever see your elementary school teachers or your middle school teachers or even your high school teachers, make sure you thank them for having you read out loud, because guess what? It helps you develop your listening comprehension and your overall just your literature development. So thank them next time you see them. um, Summarizing is also a really important and a really well-known reading strategy. As I mentioned before, if you are taking, um, actually, let me go back here real quick. If you remember, I mentioned visualizing. Summarizing can be a bit of visualizing, because you are taking a lot of the text that you have and you're taking all the main ideas and the key details and you are quite literally summarizing it for yourself. You can even add a little bit of annotating in there by adding in all the little bullet points that you thought were important and kind of looking it over and trying to see what is a key detail, what is a main idea, what is important, what's not so important, and how do I kind of fit this into like 5 sentences. Summarizing makes it easier and gives a brief overview of what it is that you've learned. And you know what? Sometimes it can even be a really useful tool for your classmates who may have missed a lecture or have missed a lesson, and they need you to give them a quick rundown on what it is that they are preparing themselves for when they go into class the next day. And you go in and you tell them, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that was pretty easy. Like I know what I should be probably studying or should probably be looking at when class is over or when I get home." Summarizing just makes life a lot more easier and it's really clear and concise. But that it does take active reading and it does take time in you trying to find the right and the correct idea and the correct details of what it is that you're reading. So I would definitely say that. Previewing is basically, sorry, previewing over here. Previewing is basically skimming. But if anyone has ever, by any chance, have taken a reading strategy class in high school, one of the things that they'll actually tell you about, and this is something that I remembered, is that your teachers will have you read the table of contents. Yeah. So not only are you skimming maybe the first page of your textbook, but you're also kind of skimming through you're kind of skimming through the table of contents of your book. So you're kind of getting like a big idea and you're kind of getting an idea of like how your reading is going to go. So that's what previewing is, and that's very much important for when it comes to figuring out main ideas, especially when it comes to, I would say, like science textbooks, maybe even some literature books. So I would keep that in mind. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're gonna kind of go into one of the types of reading, types of like other strategies that you can do. So this is the one I mentioned that is I would say is a visual and also is annotating. The fun thing about these reading strategies is that you can combine them and you can also just use them as is. So it's really completely up to you on how you use them. But for this one, this is something that you guys could try out. I hope maybe some of you guys have tried this at least once or twice while you guys were in elementary school or middle school. This is a KWL chart, and basically, what this is for active reading, especially, is a before, in the middle, and then after. The kind of sections that you would do when you're reading. So the K area is what you know. So say, for example, there is a certain let's talk about Disney, right? Okay, so we're going to be talking about, I know that, what is it? The Goofy movie documentary just came out, right? So say it's a book. Say, for example, that the Goofy documentary that is on Disney Plus right now is in the book. And you are being asked to read it. What you're going to do first is that you're not even going to open the book. You're going to kind of recall everything that you know about the Goofy movie. And you're going to kind of write that down here. So you're going to write down what you know. I know that Goofy is in this movie. His son Max is in this movie. They go on a on a very, very adventurous and crazy fishing trip. Um, that's what I know about the book. So, and again, before you want to, maybe even before you kind of go into the book, and then while you're also getting into the book, you're going to go into the W section, which is what you want to know. So during this section, what you're going to do is that you are going to actually be writing down, questions that you may have, things that you want solved. Like, for example, is Goofy a dog or is he not a dog? That kind of thing. It's going to be something that you want to know and you want to learn and what you want to understand while you are actively reading the book. And then in the L section, this should be around when you are done reading your book or you're done reading the chapter. And it's going to be about what you've learned. So we learned, what did we learn about the Goofy movie, or what did we learn about the documentary? You may have learned some really cool fun facts about the movie. You may have learned, maybe you've learned that Max is Goofy's only son. You probably didn't, who knows, maybe some people may have not known that. But the whole point is that you are kind of going through this process to kind of engage yourself and to kind of motivate yourself. Because this is an organizational tool, and this is supposed to help you understand your learning, and it's supposed to help you understand the information that you have, and it's to kind of really do it in a fun way. One of the things that I found that I saw that I thought was really cool. So for this one, someone kind of learned about the Olympics. So for example, what does this person know? I think this was about Greece, Greece in general. So this student said that this is where the first Olympics started. Greece was, or I think maybe this was Rome. Oh no, it's ancient Greece. Okay, sorry. I need to read too. This person says that it was a great empire, that the Athens and Sparta were cities in ancient Greece, and the ancient Greeks had many different gods. So this is what this person knows about ancient Greek. And this is what they wanted to learn while they were reading, and maybe what they wanted to learn before they were reading. They were curious about the Olympic events. They were curious about different types of wars, the enemies, famous gods, ancient monuments, and even probably was curious, which is something that, that you kind of hope happens when you are actively reading or you're just reading in general. You become more curious about what it is that you want to learn. And therefore, you get questions like this where it's like, I was wondering, what did it feel like? What did it kind of look like? And to kind of grow up in like ancient Greek times. And in this section right here, obviously this is what they learned. And if you kind of look at it, from what you wanted to learn to what this person has learned, they kind of connected it to the questions that they connected it to questions that they asked. So in a way, they were active. So honestly, what they were doing is that they were actively reading because they were honestly searching for these questions, and they got their answers. I thought this one that was pretty interesting though. What was it like to grow up in ancient Greece? Well, only rich boys went to the school, and they only went to school till they were 14. So I didn't know that. That was actually a really interesting fact. So yeah. So you kind of learn new things, and it's kind of just fun to have it like out on paper for yourself and to kind of get an idea of it. One of the other things I kind of wanted to introduce to you guys is that what I have done before, again, I have done previous student success workshops, and one of those student success workshops is effective note taking. If we look back in the sections where I mentioned connecting, summarizing, annotating, and visualizing. That is basically what, note taking is, right? You are using specific note taking to kind of enhance your learning. And you can honestly do that while you are reading. So if you guys are interested, again, if you guys go into the Canvas or the YouTube, um, you guys are able to actually go ahead and look at this, and maybe you might learn some different note-taking methods that you haven't heard of before. So that's my little shameless plug, but I highly recommend you guys to do that. So real quick, we're gonna do a quick recap. So overall, reading strategies are important. We are always constantly learning and we are always constantly developing, especially when it comes to literature and reading. So having reading strategies is important because guess what? Not only are you trying to develop your literacy and your reading comprehension, you're also maybe you want to actually start getting back into books and you want to enjoy reading again, which is something that I did, honestly. And I'm really glad that I found something that kind of really helped me want to go back into reading and to, feel excited to read again. Um, Active reading is more helpful for applying reading activities. So what that means is that, active reading and passive reading are two different types of strategies, and they require two different switches on your brain. Passive reading, your brain is kind of turned off, but you're
Stop,
leisurely
I like looking at it.
you're actually enjoying yourself. Active reading, you are being more proactive and you are being more um studious. You are being more proactive in your studies and you are actively trying to find answers and you're actively trying to kind of like understand certain things. And then note-taking apps and techniques can also help with your reading. So again, like I mentioned, we have this here, um, different different note-taking techniques that you guys can use, but then also you have different reading strategies that can help you that you don't have to use them just one by one, but you guys can use them differently and you can use them together. So it really all depends on you on how you choose to do it. Um, One way may work for someone, but another may not work for someone. So it really just depends on you. You can definitely go ahead and suggest it to some people. Um, but in the end, you have to do what's best for you. All right. So as a quick checkout item, I would love it if you guys can go ahead and scan this QR code, and if you guys can go ahead and take this quick survey.